Ritchie Chrétien, designed specifically for astrophotography. This is a 2-mirror system. You don't need any correctors or field flatteners. Actually, you kind of do, because there's astigmatism, but we won't go there. But you don't have to have a field flattener on these. They're very, very flat because of the way the mirrors are set up. There are no cheap models of this telescope available. You will not find one of these for below the tens of thousands in the most part, unfortunately. That's the problem. They're very large. They have a huge secondary obstruction on them, so you're going to see decreased contrast. I know because I shot Saturn the other night just for grins with mine. You know, it's like, wow, you know, that's why they shoot those with refractors. You know, I kind of got it. So it's really not designed for to generate high contrast, but for shooting deep sky objects, nebula fields, things like that, galaxies, tremendously good telescope. This is probably one of the top astrophotography telescopes available today. Every professional, not every, but most of the professional observatories use Ritchie Chrétien designs. Apochromat refractors, these are the high end of the refractors, astrophysics, things like that. Wonderful for astrophotography. These are great. We're going to talk a little bit about what an apochromat is soon. An apochromat is not something that says apo on the box or in the marketing literature. Let me just be perfectly clear. And we'll get to what this means in a minute. But if your system that you're looking at is not a triplet refractor, meaning it uses 3 elements in its lensing, it is not an apochromatic telescope. Period. Bar none. No questions asked. It is not an apochromatic. What's that? Okay, if you throw a lot of focal length, like if you put your Barlows and things like that on there, or get a very, very long one.
Well, if 600 millimeters is by definition, but
I would tend to agree. Difference is, then the reason for that, by the way, is that because light refracts differently in different wavelengths through the lenses, what you get is slightly different focal points for your different wavelengths. So you're going to get a slightly different focal point for your red, and a slightly different one for your blue, and a slightly different one for your green. So when you focus it perfectly and you look, you ever see those purple fringes? That's the red and the blue not quite being focused right, and a little green thrown in there, and that's what creates those fringes that you see. The point is that when you have a longer focal length instrument, your critical focus zone gets much wider. So he's actually, you're actually sort of correct. It's not noticeable that it's not an achromat. It doesn't really become an apochromat because stuff's refracted differently, but the impact is different because the focal length, the critical focus zone is this, and if red is here and green is here and blue is here, who cares? It appears clean. Agreed, but my point is that mathematically speaking, it's as far as I know, and this is where I would say, send me an email and let's get this thing right. As far as I know, from all the opticians that I've read in the white papers and stuff, you really can't get the focal lengths with two elements to focus in the same place. I don't think you can, but correct again. Send me a correction.
I can weigh in on this. I just switched from using a Orion ED80, which has pretty darn flat, reasonably flat field, kind of an apochromatic, to attack 106, which is 4 elements.
Yeah,
it is an achromatic.
Yeah.
I can tell you.
It's an apochromat.
Apochromat.
Yeah.
The field flatness and the difference in focus in the critical zone is definitely there. So an true apochromat and one that's a near apochromat, there's a very slight difference. And the images are for an H alpha, I think they're about equal sharpness.
Oh, I would agree with that.
Sure. Yeah,
sure. It's a narrow band. You can do an achromat. It'd be fine.
When you start going across multiple filters, there's a definite difference in the focus.
Yeah.
I'm talking measurable from a robofocus.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
That's from experience.
Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Versus 530, so we're talking almost apples to apples.
Yeah. Definitely not apples to apples in the optical quality.
No, I'm talking in terms of just the apochromat. One's an apochromat.
Yeah.
Is an
Yeah.
apochromat.
I mean, and again, there are doublet systems that are excellent for astrophotography that you can do really amazing. Like the 8080, the 80 EDs that are created by Orion is an awesome telescope for entry-level astrophotography. Just a wonderful instrument. I really like them. I used an 80 ED from Celestron for a while, and I really enjoyed it. The focuser was crap. Wish I bought the Orion. That was a huge mistake on my part. And I gave that telescope away. I was just like, here, take it. I don't want it anymore.
Really?
Yeah, it pissed me off. But anyway.
Another telescope like that?
So, yeah. So, but your point is, this is not a clear science, is the point. And another thing, by the way, Acromat, just to the right, you can do things like what he mentioned. If you actually were to take an RGB filtered camera, and actually, like my system is an STL 11000, and I have luminance red, green, blue filters. If I just did RGB through an Acromat and I focused with each filter, I could use an Acromat. A high quality Acromat could produce images just as good as an Apochromat if I just did RGB. The individual focus, right?
It would be a little harder to align because the focal length is slightly different.
It would not be harder to line if I use Registar, and we'll get to that in a minute on the photo processing. It can do scaling and everything. It's very, very good. It can rescale the image slightly as well. But anyway, it can be done. I wouldn't want to do it though. It's way too much work. Specialty astrographs. These are the really high-end across all the different ranges. And I just mentioned a few of the manufacturers here. Astrophysics, Takahashi, RC Optical Systems, ASA, Dream Telescopes. I know there's more. I just kind of went down the list and listed the ones that I was familiar with. Some tips to think about. The optical system should match the carrying capacity of your mount. As a rule of thumb, if the manufacturer recommends that the maximum weight capacity of your mount is 100 pounds, 50 is what you want to use. Unless you're getting an astrophysics or a Paramount, and then go ahead and go up to the top level. Like Milo's Lowe's Mandy has a top carrying capacity of 110 or 100, something like that, 50. I'm at 60 with my RC, and that is as high as I'd ever want to go. I wouldn't want to go much higher than that. What's that?
So that doesn't make me feel very comfortable. I asked Celestron about my mount, how much it is capable of carrying, and said only 35 pounds. And I think that's the weight.
What do you have?
I've got an
ASGT?
I got a C6 NGT.
Okay. Is it on a go-to or a non-go-to?
It's on a go-to.
So it's ASGT mount that you have. Is it a black one with the big thing that hangs
No,
down?
it's just a CG5
It's go-to?
NGT, yes.
Okay, it's called the ASGT mount. It's their go-to CG5 model, the
Yes.
ASGT model. I started out with that telescope. I started out with a 10-inch
When I'm
ASGT.
not banging my head against the wall, I'm coming up with some really good stuff.
Yeah.
But
That's not a bad system.
My problem is my camera keeps giving me my camera software keeps giving me fits.
Yeah, well, software. Let me just tell you about adaptive optics. And,
Yeah, me.
okay, so, but that's not a bad system. I started out with something similar, and you can do some good
I'm
stuff
happy
with
with
that.
it. It's just that if you're saying half of what they're telling you, that means I couldn't even put the telescope that it came on.
Okay, you can do anything you want to do. It's just you're going to work harder.
I am
That's
working
the
very
point,
hard.
right? And if you just put a camera with a lens on it, you'd work a lot less hard. And that's
But don't try 20-minute exposures.
I don't have a camera.
Oh, well.
I have the DSI. It's
All right, well that's cool. That's good
a
enough.
great place to start.
There you go. You gotta start somewhere.
Got to start somewhere.
Yeah, don't let me, kind of
Thank
with the
you.
equipment make you feel like you got to go spend 10 grand.
Whatever
You
you-
should if you really want to get into it, of course, but not viable. Okay, pixel scale. This is a really important one. You need to think about what kind of camera you're thinking about getting and how big the pixels are on it, and compare that to your focal length. Reason being is that you want to make sure that you're getting, if you don't have to, but ideal pairing in my view is 2 arc seconds per pixel. That's a very nice matchup. That means that every pixel covers 2 arc seconds of the sky. I like that. A lot of people will tell you should be able to go much more detailed than that, 1.5 arc seconds. I say, when's the last time you saw sub 2 arc second seeing at TDS? I know it's happened. It does happen. Not terribly rarely. It does happen occasionally. But it's not a routine occurrence. So what I did, for me is I picked a camera that gave me a wide range and I could bend down. So like I'll bend it 2.2, which gets me to 1.2 arc seconds per pixel, and I shoot that for the most part. On my Epsilon, I'm at like almost 4 arc seconds per pixel, which means even on days of really good seeing, my camera and telescope cannot take advantage of it. Which is great, because when everybody else is blown away with your Schmidt-Cassegrains because the seeing sucks, I'm imaging with my Epsilon, no problem, because seeing is totally irrelevant to me.
How do you
For the
measure
most
that?
part. How do you measure seeing?
No. How do you measure the...
Oh,
arc
good
seconds
question.
per pixel?
Wow, that is a great question. How do I do this? There's a tool called CCD Calc, and I think it's run with, or a free tool